Welcome, welcome, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Pussy Woman. I am so happy to invite and welcome Alara. Yay, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. And I'll just let everyone bask in Alara's name right now. This is what I'm doing as well with these talks. It's like, let's bask in the feminine. Let's really give her the space to be appreciated and recognized and like revered. It's a big, big part of my work. So Alara is the ecstatic life mentor. Woo! For women. So here we are. I'm so happy to welcome you here.
No, thank you so much for having me. And I really love this idea of basking, marinating, soaking, delighting in the feminine. So delicious.
It's so good, isn't it? It feels so good to the nervous system, doesn't it? Just to kind of, right, this is where we all are. Let's just settle in, and all of it's welcome too. All of you is welcome in that place of fullness and receptivity. So yeah, it's really fun. So let's start by, I'm gonna ask the first question that is kind of the opening to the conversation, which is, how did you first hear the call to connect with your womb, with your pussy? What was the first kind of inspiration, or the first thing that kind of came up for you that you desired to journey there?
Yeah, so I have this really fun story because I was actually non-orgasmic for most of my life. And when I did finally start to get some level of orgasm, it took a very focused concentration. Everything had to be just so. So I just wasn't highly orgasmic. And then as I started a conscious spiritual journey, I started meditating and doing all of this. And at the time I worked on horses, I was doing physical therapy to horses, which they were such wonderful teachers to me. They taught me so much about healing, about being present, about being tender and nurturing. And I was in my car and I was driving to go work with them. And my higher self came in and said, Om 3 times. And, oming was not part of my practice, but I knew what it was. So I said, okay. And so I took a nice deep breath and Om all the way to the end of my breath. And I did that 3 times. And at the end of the third one, an energy shot from my pelvis all the way through my body, out my crown. And I went into a full body orgasm, which I had never experienced. I did not know what was going on. I had no idea what just occurred to me. I literally had to pull the car over because my body was just like convulsing with orgasm, waves and waves of orgasmic bliss moving through my body. So I just kind of like sat there and like, oh, okay, let it move through me. Yeah. And in a couple of minutes, it stopped and I was on cloud 9. Talk about ecstatic, talk about blissful. I was like, wow, I was so lit. And I literally was like driving down the freeway with the music cranked, like dancing in my car, being able to just barely keep one foot on the gas pedal so that I could continue to move forward. And I just had never experienced anything like that. I'd never experienced so much bliss. I'd never experienced so much sensation. And I had no idea what it was. And the following 6 months after that episode, I went into a very, very turmoil period of emotional release and trauma out of my body. And, I was, one minute I was elated. The next minute I was sad. The next minute I was enraged. I was all over the place. And I'd always considered myself to be kind of this like emotionally stable person. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? Right. And I kept kind of checking in. Am I going crazy? And the message was like, no, just keep riding the waves, keep letting it move through you. And at the end of 6 months, right around the point that I was starting to reach this equilibrium, this book, just came into my space, and it was called Kundalini Awakening. And one of the chapters talked about spontaneous Kundalini awakening. And I realized that that's what had occurred to me. And so this, going from like really non-orgasmic, non-ecstatic, very like disconnected to my play, very disconnected to enjoyment, pleasure, to like that moment, it just woke me up to what is truly available to us, and really started this question of like, yeah, what do I need to do to really fully embody that?
Yeah. How do I do that?
Give me some more of that. Give me.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. And so how long would you say, that took to kind of like ground into your body? Was it like months, or would you say weeks, or what was your experience?
Just from the Kundalini awakening?
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I would say it took, that it was several months. I mean,
yeah,
it took, I would say 3 to 4 months of kind of this true chaotic energy. And
yeah,
then it started to settle. And then, 5, 6 months, it was grounding in, but I was nowhere. I still wasn't, really connected to my pleasure. I still wasn't. It was simply the beginning
yeah,
of the journey.
yeah. And with like tending to yourself, taking care of yourself, did you have practices that you kind of went to ground?
Yeah, at the time I was already meditating and had already started connecting to my chakras. My guidance has always been to work with my chakras just
Mhm.
naturally. And so I always already knew how to ground and be connected to my body and be connected to Gaia. And I've always had this very, very strong connection with Gaia. When I was a child, we had a lot of acreage of forest. And so I always spent just time by myself and her, and then I was a dive instructor, and I lived like basically under the ocean most days. And so I've always had this really, really strong connection to her, that anytime I'm feeling like, oh, I don't know, I just go out into Gaia and just let her like literally suck the energies right out of me. So she was such an imperative part of my process in those moments where I felt, chaotic, or, like, wow, this is a lot. I don't really understand what's happening. I'll just go spend time with Gaia. And I always left her space like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, just kind of rebalance. I
Yes.
definitely know that feeling of anything that happens to me energetically that feels slightly like overwhelming or big or chaotic. Outside is the place that I go, and that is the integration space that
Yes.
I feel like actually of a lot of women maybe know that, but didn't have the kind of beginnings that you and I had, because I also spent a lot of time in nature as a child too. And sometimes I can forget that when working with clients around, go outside, go outside, go outside, and how like important that is to instill as a safe place, isn't it? To really go, oh, okay, that's a safe place. This is where I can just let go and be held and recharge and, surrender and be, in that space of holding.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm the same way. I forget often as well. And even though, as you mentioned, oftentimes women know this, sometimes we all need to be reminded.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really great reminder of the simple things, the
Yeah.
simple things. Let's just keep remembering them, because, as we're going through our kind of spiraling and our awakening and our deepening into, our bodies and our pleasure and our journeys, it's easy to forget these things, isn't it? It's easy to kind of go, oh yeah, actually, it's quite simple. The practices that work for me are just doing it over and over again consistently. um, so yeah, it's always good to repeat as well, to repeat yourself. Um, and so from that place of having that experience, how did how did your connection to your womb specifically awaken from there?
I don't remember anything specific. My awareness, whenever I would go into meditation, my awareness was always taken to my sacral chakra,
Mhm.
always. And it always kind of like before I really understood, the connection to the womb, I was always really surprised because everybody was spoke about the heart. And I
Mm.
was like, because, I just go into meditation without any expectation and my awareness gets taken to my sacral and it's like work here. And I understood Kundalini Shakti at the time and I started to work with her in myself. And so I understood her connection to the sacral, but it was just simply through continuing to go into that space and beginning to understand like, yeah, that's not just your sacral chakra, right? It's the seat of your power. It's your sexual energy. It's your sexual organs. It's your womb. Like there's so much. So it started really through my own kind of curiosity of like, why is my awareness always drawn to my sacral when everybody in spirituality is always saying heart, 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 heart?
Yeah, and it's fascinating when you do journey from the heart, because normally the heart is the first place of awakening, isn't it? For from the mind down into the heart, and it's kind of easier to do that, isn't it? That kind of you can open into that, but going into the womb can sometimes be something that women don't want to do because of the disconnection and maybe the patterning and the conditioning that we have around this area of our body. So I feel like that has something to do with not really wanting to go there unless you're drawn to it, or unless something comes up and it's like, oh yeah. So that's really what I'm kind of inspired to ignite in people through these conversations about pussy, is really that it's okay to go there. It's okay to, really connect with that sense of that seat of power as well, like you said, and really, owning that. And when you started working, when you were meditating, what was kind of coming through as the activation? What was the experience of working with your sacral chakra when you started to do that kind of consistently?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I want to kind of speak to just before I answer that question, that, how you mentioned that most people enter through the heart, because I've had a lot of people say that, and that wasn't what happened for me. And so it's
Mm,
always good for me to hear that because
yeah.
I went right here and my awakening happened in the traditional Shakti tantric way of from the bottom up,
Mm.
and my heart opened later. Um, and so sometimes I'm so quick to like, let's go right into her, and I kind of like, hey, we'll get there, we'll get to the heart, but like, this is the goodness down here, So it's always good to hear that. So I appreciate that
Yeah.
perspective. Um, it went straight to my sexual energy.
Mm.
I remember, this was years and years ago, like it was just sacral chakra and I would just sit with awareness, right? Sit with acceptance and awareness. That was really my meditation at that time. And things would just start to show up for me and arise, and I would be shown and work through and really the distortion of sexual energy in my lineage and within
Mm.
myself. And first I actually addressed my masculine lineage and
Mm.
the distorted sexual energy of my masculine lineage. And then it moved into the feminine and into the shame. And I mean, so much, there's just been so much that I have gone through. I'm sure you have as well, of moving through those different energies. And I did want to kind of say, because as you were asking me that question, I was reminded one of the ways in which I did kind of activate and move into the womb was at one point, my higher self was like, okay, you've done a lot of meditating where you are moving into the chakras and moving out moving out into higher spheres of consciousness. I did a lot of that kind of meditation as well. My higher self was, now it's time to really root into the body. And I got really taught about the body, be in the body, here now, be present, be present. And I would say that's where it went from sacral chakra energy information to, oh, my womb, my sexual organs, my body.
Yes, yes, the embodiment piece, which I'm always talking about. I'm so passionate about the body because that's really where you do start to physically feel things, isn't it? You start to kind of marry deeper. You start to kind of really enhance your physical experience. So as you said, like it can feel like you're kind of outwardly moving, and it's energetic and it's powerful in kind of a different way. And then when you're kind of bringing it deeper into yourself, that's where kind of sensation and pleasure and, enlivening numb parts of your body and kind of awakening to deeper intimacy with yourself, and then, with your partner or your partners. And so, yeah, the part of kind of marrying that kind of energy that's awakened, your sexual energy, and then actually anchoring it into the body is, another journey, isn't it? It's a kind of, I don't know, I mean, it's different for everyone, isn't it? You can't say that there's only one way, but I do find that the embodiment part is really when we start to, own it within our bodies, and our lives can enhance in more of a kind of grounded day-to-day way. Like, oh, I'm just feeling more in my body, and I'm feeling more connected, and I'm feeling more joyous, and I'm feeling more able to express. Would you say that that is kind of what happened with your embodiment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before, when I was meditating, and again, I've always worked with the chakras. So there was some level of like connection to my body and my bodies and the grounded moment. But I was doing a lot of like moving into higher space of consciousness. And in those spaces, I was experiencing ecstatic bliss. However, when I started to really work on embodiment, the ecstatic bliss came much more into, like you said, the physical sensation. And this was the times that I started to re-experience those full body orgasms that I had experienced with that first initial spontaneous kundalini awakening. All the other ecstatic bliss had been very like subtle body, blissful energies, which were beautiful and very like transcendent. But when we root it into the body, yes, I mean, for one, we feel it very much in the physical body, very much in our physical reality. But I also, what I learned from it is, we are here in the physical life. And while those meditations and that part of my experience was very, very important to me, and I would never have, say that it was wrong, there was a level of disconnect from, the my higher levels of consciousness and like my physical reality, and wanting to kind of just spend time in those other spaces rather than like, wow, I'm rooting into the physical and I love it. Like, I love my life. I love this experience, like the delight of the senses, like, almost like tasting your life and hearing your life and seeing your life, and all of the very five senses and very human experience. So to me, the embodiment is the honoring of ourselves as human beings. And therefore we can bring in our higher consciousness selves. We can bring our higher version self into this experience and really light this life up in those higher vibratory energies. But if we're constantly just shifting out into those higher vibratory energies and then coming in and kind of, being disconnected, we're not bringing that vibrancy, that aliveness, that brilliance, that ecstatic bliss into the now, into this life.
Yeah, that's really, it's like the bridge, isn't it? Of oh, we're here now. We hear it all the time, don't we? Be here now, be here now, be here now. And yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful work. And so if I were to ask like how that part of kind of the embodiment started to kind of inform or enhance your relationships, your kind of connections with people in your life, or your intimacy with people that you care about, that sort of start to show in your close relationships.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when I first experienced it, I had a true communion with God. So as I was being pulled into my body and really told to like keep your eyes open and like go into a trance like state, but stay very present in the physical moment and really feel your body as you're in this trance like state, then like I had, God is my best description, show up. And I mean, I would just be in tears of unconditional love and like, oh my God, like you are so beautiful and I'm so in love with you. And it was this love relationship. And it was this real beginning. And I'm almost crying right now, remembering it, because it was like this is what love is. And this is what love is from me to God and from God back to me. And it was like, and at the time in my actual relationship, my romantic relationship, we were not doing well. I was like, I don't need this. I don't need any of this. And I was totally disconnecting from him, and I was going into God, and I was really deepening this relationship. And then within a couple of months, that just all started to transpire into my relationship with him. And, for me, what really showed up was like, how am I showing up? Just the same with the body. Like, am I disconnecting and going somewhere else to find comfort or bliss? Or am I really showing up here now to bring that energy to the table? And that was the same reflection. I just got blisslet. That was the same reflection I got with my relationships. Like, am I really showing up in this relationship, or am I disconnected and just kind of this half-ass, halfway? And what happens when I really show up in devotion, because that's what God taught me in that space, and like fucking show up in devotion, right? Like, I'm devoted to you, to me, to us. I'm devoted to this union. I'm devoted to what's really wants to transpire here. And that totally shifted. I mean, we had a spontaneous divine union between the two of us without any, attempt. It just happened. And I feel like that was largely because of what we're speaking of just now of, like my willingness and my realization that, hey, if you really want to engage in this life, you've got to really devote yourself, and you've got to really show up in the physical form and in the physical body.
And to really anchor into the mundane, which is so not what we want, is it? If we're like highly sensitive humans, women, this kind of mundaneness, this kind of boringness of the human experience can kind of just we can kind of want to get out of that. And I know for me personally, that was kind of my initiation, was bringing the magic into the mundane, bringing the spirit into the day, into the everything into it, like you said, kind of devotion, like that was kind of the portal for me, was how do I bring this love and this energy and this joy into life in that devotion, and how can I create beauty for myself and for everyone else, and how can I share that? And it's so much, it's such a deeper fulfillment. It's like a kind of homecoming, a homecoming of, it's actually good to be here. Instead of like, who's going to be up there, because that's where the good stuff is. So yeah, I fully resonate, and it's beautiful to hear, that, because also I feel like this is what more we're being asked to do is to really be here and to be in the body and really bring through, you know, our gifts as well. And I know that, you know, this is something that within your work, you know, coming and supporting, you know, women in their life and really kind of giving that gift, you know, of your connection and supporting, you know, other people is like a deeper fulfillment. Is that how you kind of feel with the work as an extension of you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like fulfillment is that reunification with ourselves, right? And part of that self is our human form in this life. And so when we are disengaged from the body, we're not really unified with ourself and who we truly are. And I found my most fulfillment with understanding, kind of like we were talking about before this, you know, of really owning who I am in this life, not who I am as an eternal being, like in this life, and how divine love desires to move through this fractal of consciousness, me, this body, right? And owning that and deepening into that, that has brought me what I would say is true fulfillment. It is what we seek. I always say you are the one that you seek, because it doesn't matter what it is you seek. You're, you know, we can put it on to all these, you know, we're seeking success, we're seeking partnership, we're seeking whatever it is. It's fundamentally yourself and the fullness, as you've beautifully put, the fullness of you, all aspects of you. And so feeling that first and foremost in myself, and then being able to help other women to connect to that and to own that and deepen that. It's just like the cherry on top of the cake, right? It's like, I'm already so fulfilled. I'm already so lit. Oh, and then that gets to happen. Like, fuck yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, it's really, it's so beautiful, it's so powerful. And I would love to ask how you work with women. So those of us who are watching it can kind of get a little taste of how you work.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm also big on embodiment and help women to reconnect to all their bodies and to reconnect to their womb, their sexual power, their sexual energy. And you know, I'm a teacher and a mentor, but I'm also a really, really powerful healer. So when I work with my clients, I'm really merging with them and I'm helping to transmute those energies. And even at a session, you know, there's a lot of transmutation that happens. So I'm really, again, I call it the woman, their woman. I'm helping them to reconnect to their woman and learn who she is, learn all about her, feel her, understand her, and then really let her begin to express and create into their reality. And you know, as you know, with your work, it affects everything in their space. You know, it affects their relationships, affects their career, it affects their wealth, it affects their love and how they get to show up for other people, and thus how other people show up for them. It's just so beautiful how powerfully transformational it really, really is. Because as I say, this is what I feel like we seek. And so when we anchor into that, we just get to keep continuing to deepen that relationship. There's no end per se, but that anchoring into that is really what we deeply desire. We yearn so strongly for that connection.
Mm. Ooh. Another round of the honoring. It's all just so good, isn't it? It's just, oh, when we really, really connect with ourselves, like you said, it is the fulfillment that we're looking for, and everything else is like, you know, that extra. And it's a real beautiful journey. And for those who are watching who are like interested in connecting deeper with their bodies, please ask us any questions in the comments, and we'll get back to you. Anything that's come up that you want to know more about. Yeah, this is a space, and this is a journey, and this is like a series that we could kind of get to know each other as well. And yeah, I think that that's really the intention is for these conversations to really bring a lot through that is very different, because everyone has a different experience, don't they? We've all had our very different experiences. And so, yeah, if you would like to hear anything more, or like to get in touch with Alara, I'm going to put all her links below. Anything else that you're feeling called to share before we go?
A lot of times when I'm working with women, really one of the main things I'm working with women is what I call moving from a performance mindset into a pleasure mindset, right? Because our society has been highly patriarchal. And this isn't something that we acknowledge within ourselves. So I just invite the listeners to really open their minds right now and invite themselves to see where they are functioning out of this performance mindset. Like, right, once I get this, I will feel valuable. Once I do this, I will feel worthy. Once I achieve this, then I will, right? And so that's what we're speaking of today, is moving out of that external and into the internal. And then all of the external arises because of that deepening of the relationship and that allowance. Like, we are here to live orgasmically. Like, when divine love moves through our being, it is orgasmic. That is what we are here to experience, that constant movement of the Shakti, of the divine love through our body, and to allow ourselves to be in this orgasmic state all the time. So that's what I say when I say pleasure mindset. It's that permission, that allowance that you get to be in pleasure all the time, no matter what it is. If you're sitting there, if you're running, if you're exercising, if you're doing your taxes, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can experience that orgasm, the ecstatic bliss, that pleasure. And this is, in my belief, where we're headed.
Yeah. Let's take us there. Woo! I love that. That was beautifully explained. So thank you so much for sharing space with me and bringing all your goodness to the table. I just realized that my light has completely gone down throughout the conversation. So we've had like this mother has moved from the light into the dark, which is fun. And yeah, any questions, anything, let us know. And yeah, sending love to everyone. Thank you, Alara.
Thank you, Gigi. It's wonderful to be here.
Bye.